Please be hopeful, any veterinary students. I'm here to tell you things get so much better after veterinary school, and it's been amazing being able to actually live my life, go and do things that I want to do, and just have the opportunity to again experience the joys of being alive.
Hello, listeners. My name's Dr. Bonnie Bragdon, and I'm here today as your hostess for the Veterinary Insider, the podcast for veterinarians and others who want to keep veterinary medicine independent and veterinarian-owned. Today's episode is powered by the Independent Veterinary Practitioners Association, also referred to as IVPA. I'm so excited. We have Dr. Bre Demaline here this evening to talk with us. And so, Dr. Bre, I'm so excited. I have not talked to you since you were a student at Michigan State. So please, warm, huge shout out. Congratulations on your officially becoming a licensed professional. Whoop, whoop.
Woo woo. It's been exciting.
So I'm so excited to catch up with you and hear. I know our listeners are probably really chomping at the bit to learn more what it's like to be in vet school. So for my listeners who have not gotten into vet school, we want to get your curiosity taken care of. But also those folks who are trying to hire new grads, we want to hear the skinny from Dr. Bre about what it means to be in vet school and how to attract new grads. So towards that, Dr. Bre, though, I like to start at the beginning. What inspired you to become a veterinarian?
Yeah. So, I would say my story is not super original, 6 years old, loved animals, had cats. But I would say that as I got older, I always wanted to be a veterinarian when I was little. But as I got older, I actually fell more in love with the profession because of people, and being able to really be there for people in moments when they're sometimes at their worst, and being able to be that psychologist and be there in those moments. I work emergency, so it's really, I see people when their emotions are at the highest, and that's what really, put my passion more into veterinary medicine and kind of sealed the deal for me.
Yeah, and you bring up an interesting point. So we have a lot of folks who join us from a variety of backgrounds, and so for those young people who are wanting to enter the profession as a veterinarian, those pre-vet students, what would you tell them about how you prepared for the emotional lift or the emotional work that comes with being a veterinarian?
Yeah, I would say definitely spending time as much as you can in different hospitals, not just one hospital that's in your hometown, 10 minutes away from your, house. Try to go out to different places, maybe a city place and large animal, small animal, to really see the day by day and get a different feel of, what veterinarians are doing in their day. Are they happy? Where are they finding fulfillment? What does their day to day look like? And that really set me up for success and finding, hospitals that I really loved and they were happy, and it really left a good impression on me.
Oh, good. All right. And I know for my independent veterinary practice owners, they want to know, what is vet school like? For me, people of my generation, we've been out way longer than I want to say. So what's it like to be in vet school? What's going on?
Yeah, so it was, quite an experience. I will say I graduated in the time where COVID hit during my last few years of vet school. So first year was awesome. We had a new curriculum at my school. I went to Michigan State. So that was really exciting, meeting lots of new people. We were put into fun houses. It really felt like talking to students who had previously gone through the programs, that they were caring more about your quality of life as a vet student and trying to make things a little bit more balanced than things had been in the past. So you didn't feel so burnt out by the end of reaching third or fourth year and you're graduating being like, I'm so tired. How can I start my career? But it was a blast. And even though COVID kind of came through some of my years of vet school, I graduated, and now I'm a year and a half in of being an emergency veterinarian, which has been so fun and such a learning curve.
Well, and so for my listeners out there who want to attract new grads, check us out at iveterinarians.org. We actually have information about interns and externships and how to connect and how to make that all happen with our veterinary students. But Dr. Bre, let's get down to brass tacks. So help me understand, as a veterinary student, how did you get introduced to the world of work? How did you go about finding your first job out? What did that look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have a lot to say about that. To all veterinary students, I would highly recommend being involved in the Veterinary Business Management Association, or VBMA. That was one of the key doors that I opened during vet school that opened so many things for me. It was the place that I learned potentially I wanted to be a practice owner, my passion for independent ownership and keeping that within the veterinary world in itself. That's how I found really independent practices who poured into me, and that's something I'd love to talk about in terms of that. And that's how I found different jobs, talking to my professors who knew the area. So I knew an area that I kind of wanted to end up in. I kind of just asked around of, who's the place I want to go to? And they knew me and knew I didn't want to be put into a place that was going to be a horrible situation for a new grad, especially going into emergency. It's so very important, regardless, to find that first job that is going to just be that foundation for you.
So let's unpack this a little bit more. So Dr. Bre, what does horrible look like to you? What should employers not do to new grads?
Yeah, I think the number one thing would be empty promises, in terms of, there's no mentorship, and mentorship's a big buzzword a lot. And there's a lot of, people can throw the word mentorship around, but it looks different for every individual person. But I saw a lot of my friends and, classmates go into jobs where they were promised all these things in terms of mentorship. They're going to have a buddy 6 months out, and lo and behold, almost all of those either left the practice 6 months in because they were not given the right promises, or they're still there and they're very unhappy, and now they're burnt out only a year and a half out. So that's part of that. And then work culture was really important to me as well. I wanted all my teammates to feel empowered to make decisions and to advocate for their patients, and to be in an environment that sparks fun and joy, even when things are really, really horrible, in the sense of, triage after triage. And we can all just find that as a team and collaborate together.
So let's flip that around. What does good look like? Like, specifically, how can an independent practice be sure they're offering the right things for new graduates?
Mm-hmm. I would say definitely having somebody to just talk to as a new grad. And if you're going to bring new graduates on, definitely be able to, have someone set aside if it's not you, because we all know independent practice owners are incredibly busy, have lots of plates spinning and different people to talk to all the time. But if it's not you, having somebody else, another veterinarian or an associate, be the point of contact for somebody to just check in. My first year out, I was at an awesome practice that I was paired with another veterinarian, and we had weekly check-ins, monthly check-ins. We went out to coffee sometimes, and we didn't just talk about work. We talked about how I was feeling, what are my hobbies, which is, for all vet students, you'll forget what hobbies are and that you're supposed to have them during vet school. So after, my mentor would ask me, what are you doing with your spare time? And I'm like, I'm supposed to do something with my spare time. I shouldn't be on Vin just Googling all the cases that I saw the last week and, following up on things. But yeah, and then just making sure, your work culture, and it's also very important, I would say, to have veterinary technicians or nurses who also love to teach. During vet school, everyone will be told that, veterinary nurses are such an important part to veterinarians learning. And that's absolutely true. They know so much more than you do when you get out of school. And having just a full team that loves to teach and to mentor is so important.
Well, what if as a former owner and somebody who's been around for quite a while, what about those folks that are just tight-lipped, right? So sometimes, I have a new graduate come in, or even a new veterinarian or a new technician, and it just feels like I keep giving or I keep reaching out, and they just don't seem to open up or respond. Shouldn't I expect them to come to me? Isn't that how that's supposed to work?
I would say no. I was if you're having that kind of difficulty, I would try to take a step back and see, are they uncomfortable talking to you because you're the boss, and, they don't want to let on the fact that they're scared or they're nervous or they can't stop thinking about the patient they saw 2 weeks ago and they could have done something differently. And if it's not you, if, your personalities and things, don't take it, too personal. Just allow yourself to grant that opportunity to another person that maybe fits their, age range a little better if they're a younger person or somebody who you think would be a better match for them. So you can be that rock, and so that you're not in a position that 6 months down the road, you don't really know too much about your new graduate, and you don't know one day if they give you something that says, here's my notice that I'm leaving, you don't feel like it blindsided you.
Yeah, so I think it's really important, as now given my age and where I'm at in my career, what I've noticed about myself is sometimes I think I'm being supportive and I think I'm being outgoing, and I'm actually being pushy and threatening. So giving folks space and time to open up, ask questions. So if you can, go out on a limb and just, you don't have to name names, but describe to me kind of like a real, true relationship you've had with a mentor and what that looked like and what you loved about it.
Yeah, I think instantly I can think of two amazing veterinarians that I met my first year out, and they were at my first job. One was kind of our boss per se, and she was very similar to I in the sense that, she had everything set in stone. She was, a boss woman. She was doing such an amazing job of, running every aspect of her life. And for me and her, she would set me down and we would just kind of chat about what are my goals? How can she help me reach my goals? And there were cases that were really hard, or I didn't quite know what was going on. And she was always available. It didn't matter if it was 2 a.m. or 3 a.m., just being able to be there and support me in that aspect. And then I had another veterinarian, I'll call her out, Elaine Shake. She's become a good friend of mine. And even though I've moved states away, she's coming to visit me soon. But she was awesome. She was my kind of paired veterinarian my first year out, and we went on for coffee, and she was a veterinarian that really would ask, what are your hobbies? What are you doing in your spare time? There were cases that, didn't go the way I wanted to, and I would call her and she would just, be that rock for me, or I would just talk to her. And even now, a year and a half out, I called her a few months ago just to be like, I don't know what happened. Can you talk to me about this? And it just felt so much better. And both of those women are just absolutely powerhouses in veterinary medicine, and will continue to be.
Wonderful. So if you are of my age, looking to hire a new grad, want insights, please go to iveterinarians.org, IVPA's website. Not only can you look and post internships, externships, those types of things, but also we have a student program. We're always looking for mentors, coaches, and even, I hate to say it, donations. So check us out at iveterinarians.org. But Dr. Bre, let's talk about something that I actually struggled with, which is, that extreme terror of first year out. So for those folks who are still in veterinary school or pre-vet, they're looking they're looking forward to their first year as an official doctor. How did you handle all of that anxiety? And how did you handle it when you made mistakes? What did you do?
Yeah, I think just embracing it and knowing that you're never going to know everything, and also knowing that people don't expect you to. And if they do expect you to, you're with the wrong people and you should reevaluate because you cannot know everything. And my first couple months out, I will say, were the hardest. During veterinary school, they'll talk to you a lot about, imposter syndrome, and a lot of my classmates went through that. But I really felt like it didn't really hit me in school, but my first few months out, especially the first 2 or 3 months, I think imposter syndrome really came for me. And, I was thinking, I'm not smart enough for this. How did they even let me graduate like this? And, just trying to keep myself bubbled up and put on a good show is what it felt like. But until I actually started embracing it and just owning that I don't know everything, and looking up to the other veterinarians that I worked with who'd been out a number of years and be like, can you help me understand this? Or if I had to do a crazy calculation that I didn't feel like school prepared me for, they would help me through it. And just owning, you don't know everything, and you are smart enough. You got into veterinary school and you left veterinary school with a degree, and you're going to be just fine. So embracing it and just really leaning into the people around you, and don't feel like they're judging you.
Yeah, that's an important one. Again, if you're a mentor and a coach and long in the tooth like I am, be cautious, be understanding that folks maybe are feeling very vulnerable. But on the flip side, if you're young, know that people want you to succeed. They're excited to have you in the practice. They may not be aware how intimidating they are and maybe a little threatening. So just feeling comfortable with being vulnerable, and everybody knows. I had a few stall tactics when I was in practice, right? So, maybe I would tell a client I left my stethoscope in the treatment room, so I might have to go check and research something while I was back there. Your customers and your clients totally appreciate it when you say, hey, this is a complicated case. We're going to put lots of resources around this, and I'm going to get back to you. And just know that you can't know everything. Do you have any specific books or websites or any of your go-to resources that you like to consult?
I would say Vin. I mean, it's not very creative, but Vin really, in school, I don't feel like they really taught us enough about how useful Vin was going to be. And then after school, it's incredibly useful. And then after that, it's really the other veterinarians I worked with. I worked really hard to find the right practice for me after graduation that ticked all my boxes. The biggest one, working with collaborative veterinarians who were going to be able to just say, hey, I have this case. Can I talk to you about it? And it felt really good as a new graduate to have veterinarians who were out, 12, 20 years come to me and ask me about what my thoughts were on it, and actually being able to help and being like, I actually do know stuff. Or you really can't know it all. And each case is so different. So really it was, the people around me and good old Vin.
Wonderful. Well, I'm sure Dr. Paul Pion will be really happy for you to say that. So, so help me understand. I'm going to backtrack for just a moment. What was your exact process for finding your job? Like, how did you approach the interview? So it wasn't just you performing and meeting the needs of the clinic, but how did you approach the interview to make sure that you knew more and you knew, what you were in store for when you took that job?
Yeah. So I would say I was probably a bit more aggressive than a lot of my classmates in the sense of knowing what I wanted to find out of the practice, and also knowing that I had a lot of opportunity at different hospitals. I wrote a list down of all the things that I needed to know about a practice, and I could, biggest thing was culture. I asked around too in the community that I knew, and if you talk to enough hospitals, everybody knows, what's going on there, what's going on there. And I would look at reviews of hospitals as well. We all know some of those can be taken with a grain of salt. But I think it's telling after, one after the other, what kind of things are going on in a hospital in terms of organization, and being able to grow in a practice was really important to me too. And then doing externships. That was really a key place. I did as many, vacation spots and externship spots as I could during my few last years of veterinary school to tour as many hospitals and get in there, not just a day, but multiple weeks. So I could really see the culture, really see how the vets work together, what was their kind of day-to-day looking like, and really wanted to, again, see that empowerment of staff and have staff members who would go to their, their veterinarians and say, hey, this is happening, or I think this. And it was a collaborative environment, was just incredibly important to me. But yeah. And then I will say that's kind of my plug for independent ownership, is that I think every veterinary student should really, really, really try to find independent practices to get in there for externships. In my experience, and I did a lot of externships, the independent hospitals are where you will get the absolute most experience. I was very lucky to find a hospital who was independently owned up in Wisconsin, Paw Health Network, and they absolutely poured into me at every point that they could. They put trust into me that I didn't think anyone would as a second year or third year veterinary student. And I came out of their hospital doing tons of, I did my first GDV as a third year vet student before I even got into third year. And I was doing enterotomies and, big surgeries that, a lot of veterinary students are going to graduate vet school only have done one spay or one neuter. And I felt so thankful for their time. And I didn't even go and work for them afterward. And they were just so thankful to just help me and help the profession. And I found a lot of independent practices were willing to do that for me.
That's wonderful. I do want to touch back on the Veterinary Business Management Association. So for those of you still in vet school, check it out, VBMA. But tell me more about their certification process and what that looks like.
Yeah, so that's a great question. I've had to think about that for a long time. But during veterinary school, what they'll do, and many other clubs will do this too, or organizations, they'll have talks every week, sometimes, 2 in 1 week, and they'll bring in speakers from all over the place in kind of 4 different big categories. One in mentorship and career fulfillment, the other one in more like financial things, being able to be financially literate when you get out of veterinary school and to kind of just know life. They'll bring in all of those different speakers to come in, and then you'll go to those presentations and get what's called a credit by going usually an hour credit. And then after some time, and it's not too hard, especially if you really take the time to go, in which I do recommend. It is so important to be involved in things outside of, just your schooling. You actually can earn a certificate, which is awesome. And I will say that coming out of veterinary school, when I was in the interview process, being able to say, I did this work to get this. And there's also great leadership opportunity within that organization that opens up so many doors for networking. I was lucky enough to become president of my local chapter. Then I went on to be more involved as a regional leader. And I will forever be thankful for those relationships. And I still get, great opportunities that randomly come up along the way that are now a year and a half ago or 2 or 3 years ago from that organization itself.
Yeah. So if you are a student and wanting to check out VBMA, or maybe even you are a mentor and would like to get more involved with student education in business management, check out VBMA, and we'll put that link here for our listeners to see. All right. So now we're going to fast forward. Dr. Bre Demaline, surgeon and emergency veterinarian extraordinaire. And one of the things you do for fun is you have a side hustle with Intelligence. Tell me, what is Intelligence and why veterinarians should pay attention?
Yeah, so they put out, Intelligence is an organization that puts out, called the Fountain Report, a weekly, basically it's a newsletter about all the things happening in veterinary medicine, all down to the stocks, to the nitty gritty details of things on the corporate end. It does shout out independent ownership, and it kind of just keeps you up to date about what's happening in the world of veterinary medicine and company, in the, really the profession as a whole. And then what I do is I actually am a managing editor for the Veterinary Student Insider, which is kind of a smaller pooled portion of that specifically for veterinary students, not only just veterinarian students, but also veterinary technician students and kind of all of the alike, to also be able to know what's going on in the world, what should I be prepared for, and to stay up to date as much as possible.
All right. So you are now an insider. You are a veterinary insider. So, Dr. Bre, for practices and veterinarians maybe that haven't been able to stay connected, what is happening in the world of consolidation and acquisitions? Are we losing the profession? Is it gone? Does it mean that veterinarians are no longer going to own practices? What's happening? Tell us your secrets.
I would definitely say it's not gone. I think during veterinary school, and that's when I first actually started this position as managing editor, was my final few years of veterinary school. Consolidation was at its hardest in terms of corporate. And then it's kind of backed down. Since being after veterinary school, we see again and again all those corporates who bought all these practices and are now trying to retreat back because they went too fast. It's not working out. I alone, in my area alone, see a lot of corporate practices closing down in the area, while I work at an independent practice now that I absolutely love, and, we're thriving and doing really well, and we're busier than ever. So I would say, it's not the end. There's still lots of hope out there. And we have seen a lot of evidence that corporate consolidation is slowing down.
And so lots of schools are going to be opening up. So I'm going to challenge you a little here. Put your feet to the fire. So we have more schools opening up. So probably in the next 5+ years, we'll have more veterinarians. Some states are starting to pass the mid-level practitioner. So really, really lots and lots of disruption going on in the profession. What do you think veterinary medicine will be like? And what do you think it's going to look like for a veterinarian in the next 5 to 10 years?
Ooh, that's a hard question. Especially, I just got out. But I have personally kind of, looked into the thoughts about all the, there's 1.5 million schools opening. It feels like every week there's another announcement of another school opening. And I think we're definitely going to be in a new unique position that, students that graduated, with like I did in 2023, 2024, we have a lot of job opportunity. There's one student per job opportunities, 1 to 6 for the most part. But there is, evidence that that's might be starting to change in the next few years, especially as we open up more schools, graduate more students. So it's going to be really important for those students to really fine tune what they're looking for, get their experiences. In terms of veterinary medicine, I'm hopeful that, independent ownership will become more and more of a priority. We're seeing rising costs all over veterinary medicine and the world. There's no doubt about that. And I'm hopeful that as long as we can keep, putting our passion where we need to, that we can keep independent ownership happy and healthy and really empower not only the veterinarians, but our clients and our pet owners, that why it's so important to, be involved in community and to give back to independent ownership.
So if you are excited about the Fountain Report, and I would recommend that everybody check it out, check out Intelligence, the newsletter, and the Fountain Report, because I believe they do quite a bit on reporting on consolidation and kind of the current state of how many clinics are being bought and kind of what's going on with consolidation. So I encourage you to check it out and subscribe and follow Dr. Bre. Yeah. So we've talked about so many things, right? You're on your path. You're early in your career. What does it look like for you towards ownership? Do you have aspirations to own? How are you going to become an owner? What's that look like?
Yeah, so I would definitely say that's changed a lot for me over the last year and a half. During veterinary school, I was very gung ho that I was going to be a practice owner. I had my year 1, my year 3, year 5 goals all planned out, knowing that, some things are going to be changed just a little bit. But, I took my first job trying to get those steps in made. And now I work at an independently owned hospital that there's a lot of opportunity for growth. I would say, I was not prepared for how hard that first year was going to be out. And I realized I had to take a step back to really just focus on learning to be a veterinarian. I remember telling my mentor my first job out, writing her an email like, oh, you think in 6 weeks we could have a meeting to be more mentored on ownership and all these goals. And she gently said, absolutely, but I think you should take a second just to focus on you. And she was absolutely right. That first year was really hard out. I didn't have time to be working on anything else other than learning to be a veterinarian, which is a lifelong journey, I feel like, but really getting those foundational steps underneath you so that you don't feel those Sunday scaries so bad when, work's coming up the next day, and that you can just not be in a constant state of stress. Now I've been able to kind of take a step back and put that, I feel good. I don't have the Sunday scaries anymore, which is, a win. And moving forward, I've kind of started to rethink about those things and how do I become more involved in my community? How can I become more involved in the practice that I'm currently at? And I've started to reach out to my owner and kind of talk about, we're building an internship program very shortly here, and I would love to be involved in that. I have a lot of passion for mentorship and teaching new grads, even though, I'm technically a new grad myself, but just giving back and, being able to be that person that says, I also don't know it all. So please ask me any question. You feel free. And if I don't know the answer, we'll work together to figure it out. But yeah, so it's kind of been, I slowed my roll just a little bit, I will say, which it was good for me. I needed to do that. And now I'm kind of at the point coming up on a year and a half. And I'm sure by when year 2 mark hits, I'm going to feel like it's time to really start gearing up to be prepared to look into that again. I don't know 100% if I'll go into practice ownership at this point in time. I'll just need to reevaluate where I am in terms of my values and what I want out of life and in general, but it's still something that I think about constantly. And I have a lot of passion, whether I'm not the owner, but if I'm not, being able to still be involved as much as I can and get those things that fulfill me out of it.
I love how fearless and bold you are. And I would hope it's something I discovered very late in life to be fearless and bold. And I hope everybody out there, all of those new graduates, I hope you learn from Dr. Bre to be fearless and bold and understand that mistakes will happen and you can and you will recover. If you're looking for resources on how to buy or start a practice, please check us out at iveterinarians.org. Subscribe to our podcast on Spotify and through other channels. We've got lots of guests who will walk you through the nitty-gritty of how to look at buying and owning a practice. So Dr. Bre, what are some small things that you want to accomplish as far as becoming a leader, right? We're fearless, we're bold. How do you get the skills and the knowledge to lead with confidence?
Yeah, I think a lot of that came with just acknowledging like where I was and what I needed out of somebody. And I remember taking a moment a few years ago just to sit there and say, what am I looking for out of somebody when I feel moments that I don't know what's going on. I'm just a ball of stress and I'm looking for somebody to make, pat me on the back and say, it's going to be okay. Like you can do this. And so those are kind of the qualities that I wanted to be moving forward and things that I still want to be. Now that I'm a year and a half out or 2 years, my practice is starting to hire some new grads, which is so fun because I watch them come in and I can see it on their faces that they're just trying to impress, trying to be the best they can be. And they don't sometimes want to let on that they don't know how to do something or they're scared. And I personally went out of my way to, see them when no one else is around them and say, listen, I don't know everything. I know that you don't, and it's okay. I'm not expecting you to. Please, if you're like concerned and you don't want to ask somebody else because you think it's a stupid question, just come ask me. I'm not going to judge you about that. Like I also ask stupid questions, and I remember being in a position where I wanted to ask a question, but I felt like it led on. Maybe I didn't know something that I should know, and that they're going to judge me, maybe not want me there anymore. You go down that tunnel, but really just having the listening ear. You don't have to be the best at anything, but being able to listen, to slow down and empower people around you are just absolutely great components to being a great leader.
So Dr. Bre, have you ever been in a situation where somebody really did kind of talk down to you or another colleague really did make you feel stupid and really didn't handle the situation right? Can you describe that to me? How did you get through that?
Yeah, I would say I have. And I would say that was about a time, maybe early on in vet school that I didn't quite have the leadership skills that I do now. And I was scared and nervous and, it was very quickly learned in that situation. I was in an environment that did not have a good workplace culture that, they were always waiting for you to fail. And that was kind of the biggest thing that really scared me. And there were moments in that hospital that, we did have those interactions and trying to get through that. And it was hard. It was hard feeling like, someone feeding into those insecurities of yours and feeding into that you aren't smart enough. Aren't you supposed to be in vet school and you don't have this experience? But I remember going home and just kind of sitting back and being able to look at myself and say, everybody has different experiences. We all come from different backgrounds. I know that I'm going to be just fine coming out of this. And I have so much to learn. I'm very early on in this. And if I don't know something, it's okay. I would go and find opportunity to learn from somebody who actually wanted to teach me and wanted me to succeed rather than wait for me to fail.
It is important in hindsight to know that you are enough and you have enough and you will be enough to get through something and be successful. Probably the key is being vulnerable, knowing when to ask for help and feeling comfortable with that. And even if that help comes at a cost, knowing that you did the right thing.
That's a great point. I think even now, when situations where I want to ask a question, but I don't want to, feel stupid or, something, I think always putting your ego aside and knowing that it's really not about you. It's about the patient care. Things moving forward has really helped me to be able to sit back and say, you know what, it doesn't matter how I feel about it. And if my feelings get hurt, I just need to know that I'm doing the right thing for the patient. And every single time that I've done that and I've asked the question, I've felt so much better about decisions moving forward. And no one's ever made me feel stupid about knowing something. And sometimes they tell me they don't know and we look it up together.
But I do. I remember calling, I had a very complex case that frankly, I probably somewhat sort of misdiagnosed in that it was an immune-mediated arthropathy that does not happen very commonly in dogs, right? Not something that normally happens in dogs. And so I referred the case. The specialist called me and said, Bonnie, you did not refer this case soon enough. You know, this dog's really going to suffer from complications. And so in hindsight, I probably carried that burden longer than I needed to. But knowing that having the comfortable and the vulnerability to ask those questions, ask early, and always understanding that feedback is a gift, whether you ask for it or you don't ask for it, but that feedback is always a gift. So, Dr. Bre, what do you do to have fun? You talked, you opened it up. You said every veterinarian should have a hobby. What's your hobby?
Yeah, I love going out and exploring. I did a major life change the beginning of this year. I went to Michigan State. I was planning to stay in Michigan for a long time. Some life things changed, and I up and moved to Texas all by myself. Drove my car and my two cats over here to Texas at the middle of the year and started a new job over here where I didn't really know anybody, which has been such a blast. I love to explore. Austin's a great city. I love to, I'm a food person. I go to different restaurants sometimes by myself and just eat all different kinds of foods. I go hiking, go on walks all the time. And, I'll be honest, I'm still trying to find, what my hobbies are. Again, I used to have so many hobbies, and after being in school for so long, it's hard to forget that you're supposed to do things other than, prep for your next day or think about things or just relax, honestly, because your body was such a ball of stress for so long. But yeah, I just love experiencing life again. For so long, I felt a little bit like my life wasn't being started, and I would watch and it's hard, comparison's the thief of joy. During veterinary school, I watched a lot of my friends and family as I grew up. They're getting married, they're traveling all over the world and moving on with their lives. But it kind of felt like I was stuck. I didn't have any money. My whole job was school. Everyone tells you it's coming in the years to come, but it's hard to really see that and what it looks like. But please be hopeful, any veterinary students. I'm here to tell you things get so much better after veterinary school. And it's been amazing being able to actually live my life, go and do things that I want to do, and just have the opportunity to again experience the joys of being alive.
I mean, you make a very good point. You actually have to teach yourself to watch TV again, go to the movies, take time for yourself, and really teach yourself that you can't just always work to fill the void. Because I think that's what makes us so successful as veterinarians and as students, right? We always learned if there was a void or there was time, it was always filled by school or by work. And after a while, that's just not very fulfilling or satisfying. All right, Dr. Bre, what is your favorite surgery, right? I see you. Am I right? Am I right? Future surgeon, maybe boarded surgeon?
Oh, no. No, I did enough school, and with the goals that I have with my career in life, we don't have time for that. And that's okay, to each their own. But I feel very strongly being able to, I worked really hard to be in practices that would allow me to do anything I really wanted to. And I work in an amazing independently owned practice now who we cut all sorts of things. All the veterinarians cut their own cases, all emergency. We don't have to be board certified. And, my, our boss per se, or my practice owner, is just an incredibly skilled surgeon. She's not board certified, but she's been trained by one. So she comes in, and I took out a kidney with her the other week, and that was so fun. I never thought I'd be doing that. And now I feel like I could do it again by myself. But I would say my favorite surgery is a GDB surgery. I think they're the big kahuna of emergency, and you get everything done, and it's such a life-saving procedure if you're able to do it. And they can either go really good or really bad. I recently did a very difficult one that did not end up the way we wanted to, but alas, people were very thankful. And it was really fun to be in surgery to be able to do that. But anything abdominal soft tissue, I'm in there. I would love to do it, and I have a lot of fun doing it. And each case is so very different. And it's been weird, being in Texas here. I've seen some wild things. I saw something be attacked by a deer the other day, and it was really horrible. And it was, it's crazy the things that you'll see out here.
Well, I love what you have to say about learning surgery, right? So I've heard from a lot of practice owners that they worry that new graduates are very, very fearful of surgery. So if I understand you correctly, really it was you finding the situation and opening yourself up and really wanting to explore that. So what advice would you give to, new graduates who are a little or even a lot fearful of surgery and anesthesia? Like what feedback would you have for them?
Yeah, and I think that's totally fair. I mean, school does not, these days in a lot of curriculum, there are students graduating who's only done a neuter because that's what came up during their year of, or their, past rotation through surgery, and they didn't get a spay. So they graduated with only doing a dog neuter, and that's not appropriate. And then they get their first job and they're expected to do it. And that's a lot of pressure and it's really scary. I would say, if you're already past graduation, finding opportunities to either find a low cost veterinary hospital, and if your owner's okay with it or your boss is okay with it, going over there and just volunteering your time and they're going to be thankful for the help, and just learn the ways and see cases after cases go through and get your hands in there to just feel more comfortable. And also just opening up to your practice owner and saying, I don't feel comfortable doing this, but I want to. Can you help me? And just finding more opportunities to, there were times that I wanted to come in on my day off to learn a different surgery that school didn't teach me. And I would come in and I would watch another veterinarian do it. And the more I saw them do it, and I'd learned things that I didn't know, that was a lot of fun. And then if you're in veterinary school, it's really important again to find those practices and who are willing to put trust into you. And I would say more often than not, it's the independent practices. A lot of the corporate organizations that I went to for externships, there's stops at every turn because they have to go through the chain of command and they have to abide by their rules. And being an independent owner, I would definitely say allow yourself to trust and to be there for veterinary students. It can be really scary to allow some of that control away and to have a veterinary student in there with you, but if you want new grads who know how to do surgery, you have to put time into them before they become new grads. And the only way to do that is by allowing yourself to bring them in and give trust to them.
Well, you bring up a really good point, Dr. Bre, right? It's not only about the veterinary student and the new graduate feeling fearful, but it's also those of us who've been in practice for a while, right? We have to feel comfortable with being vulnerable that, hey, maybe we do something differently, or maybe that new graduate might have different ways of doing something. So it's being comfortable with being transparent and vulnerable from both sides.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I definitely met a couple of practices, I was kind of feeling out where I wanted to work, that it was really important to me to, especially during the kind of the interviewing process when I was interviewing them to see if I wanted to work there, being, what are you going to allow me to do? And I found that some practices were like, oh, I don't know. We'd have to see about that. And, I don't know, we'd have to have, our surgeon oversee you first before letting the emergency veterinarian to do surgery. And I found it was really actually not very common for emergency veterinarians to cut their own cases at a lot of hospitals. And that was something that that was a deal breaker for me. And I was finding, asking the right questions, and they would say, oh, I don't really think you guys should be cutting any cases unless it's a GDV. If it has to be cut, it should wait till morning. And just asking those questions let me know that, nope, that's not the right opportunity for growth for me. I'm a new graduate. I need every opportunity as possible. And I want to learn as much as possible. So being able to find the right practice is just so important, and having that owner be able to open up and allow you those opportunities.
Dr. Bre, that's wonderful, right? So great advice for how do I learn something new? Fearless, bold, confidence, transparency, vulnerability, process, right? Asking all those questions up front, making sure that you get what you need, having a clear vision and a clear goal. So I do have another question. So Dr. Bre, when you first started veterinary school, what did you think you were going to do? What was your career goal? Does it match? Is it the same?
No, I graduated, or I came into veterinary school And I knew I wanted to be a small animal veterinarian, maybe exotic. I think in my, application, I even wrote something about like small, like ruminants and things. Really just open to whatever. And then becoming involved in a lot of organizations, which again, I'll never stop harping on. It is so important as veterinary students to be involved in anything outside of actual school. I kind of learned a little bit more of what I wanted to do. Being involved in VBMA really gave me a lot of power um, and knowledge to think about practice ownership and start looking into that more. And then for me, when I went to undergraduate school, was on the UP of Michigan, and there's no emergency hospitals up there. It's all kind of everyone has to do your own thing. We have on-call hours, and because we're just so spread out. And so I didn't get a lot of experience to emergency, but I had found myself pretty early on being annoyed or, over the puppy vaccine appointments and talking about heartworm, and you got to get your fecal sample in pretty early on. And I would look more to the cases that, were the crazy cases that came in, were getting called at 2 a.m. And so during veterinary school, I took the opportunity to get some jobs because, nobody has money in veterinary school and you got to live. So I got some different jobs in different ways. I actually bartended and served during veterinary school, but also started working at an emergency hospital to get a feel, and pretty quickly at that point knew that I wanted to go into emergency. So I kind of fluctuated, and then now I've stuck with emergency, and I actually get to do a lot of exotics now, which is really fun. And that's not something I knew I was going to do during veterinary school per se. But coming out, I've learned a lot about it and have formed a lot of comfortability with it.
Well, and that's what I love about veterinary medicine. And I would make sure, I think every veterinarian tells the same story, which is I went into school thinking I wanted to do I thought I was going to be an equine orthopedic surgeon. But then you discover things about yourself. And I discovered I cannot palpate mares and I suck at lameness. So equine orthopedic surgery was not for me. But we all discover our career path. We all have a way of working it out. And if we go down the wrong path, we can always circle back. So many resources to help us find the right path. And if you are early career, mid-career, even pre-vet or vet student, please check out iveterinarians.org. We actually have some really cool podcasts of veterinarians who have a long and very interesting career path. And if you want to learn more about their pathway, please check us out. Subscribe to our podcast, The Veterinary Insider, and you can find us on Spotify, YouTube, a couple other places that we'll provide you the links for. But Dr. Bre, as we kind of wrap up today, what gives you hope about the veterinary profession? You're young, you've just graduated, you're early. What keeps you hopeful and positive and excited about the future?
I would say the people I work with. That's a kind of a lame answer, maybe not, but all the time, I look around at the other veterinarians I work with, and just the pure joy that we have for, what we're doing. I tell a lot of my nurses, I even said it last night for probably the 1,000th time, that, I'm in mid-surgery and I just stop and pause and say, I get paid to do this.
This is me.
Yes, it's so fun. And when you tell other people about your job who aren't anywhere involved in veterinary medicine, and the look on their faces, and even if you've been feeling down, they look at you like you're your hero, and, selfishly, it feels great. But I'm very hopeful in the sense of a lot of things are changing in veterinary medicine, and we'll just see how things go over the next 10 years, for better or worse. And we're going to make it through just fine. And people are always going to have pets, and we're always going to be the ones to be able to be there and care for them. And I'm just very thankful to be able to do what I do. And I hope that every veterinary student, holds on and realizes and remembers that it's going to be great. Greatness lies ahead. And pre-veterinary students, it's hard, it's hard trying to get there, but once you do, you're going to be okay.
Well, you heard it here on the Veterinary Insider with Dr. Bre Demaline. We're so excited to have you as our guest today, and you heard it first. The future is so bright. I gotta wear shades. Even my horse wears shades. So maybe we'll flash a picture of my horse wearing his sunglasses. So yes, I'm very excited about what the future holds, and independent practice is alive and well, and with new graduates such as yourself, I'm very excited about what the future holds. Love the fact that you're open to mentoring and coaching. How can new graduates reach you, Dr. Demaline, in case they have some questions?
Yeah, I do have social media. It's Dr. Bre DVM. I also am on LinkedIn. They're more than welcome to always reach out to me any way possible. I sometimes spend a lot of time answering DMs from a lot of different pre-veterinary students, and I even get people who I've met a few years ago through VBMA and other organizations who reach out to me for things like little interviews, and it's so fun. I have a lot of joy doing that. If I don't respond right away, it's probably because I worked overnight and I'm taking a nap before my next shift, but more than happy to answer any and all questions. And I want you to feel good about life moving forward and know that you too can feel very excited about your job. And if you don't feel that way, I'm more than happy to have that conversation and help us work together to figure out how we can get that for you.
Well, anyway, so glad to have you here, Dr. Bre. And as we wrap up, please check out iveterinarians.org. Join. Lots and lots of benefits if you are an owner. My favorite benefit is teleradiology. Independent radiologists delivering services to independent practices. If you're new to the profession, check out our podcast, subscribe, and we look forward to catching you at our next episode.